It is day 13 of Donald Trump's criminal trial, which resumes later this morning, a day after the judge issued his sharpest warning yet of potential jail time for the former president for continuing to violate his gag order. At the start of court yesterday, Judge Juan Merchan found Trump in contempt for a 10th time, fining him an additional $1,000. But in his ruling, the judge stated, quote, "It appears that the $1,000 fines are not serving as a deterrent." Judge Merchan also acknowledged the magnitude of potentially jailing Trump and how disruptive to the proceedings it would be, stating, quote, "The last thing I want to do is put you in jail. You are the former president of the United States and possibly the next president as well. There are many reasons why incarceration is truly a last resort for me. But at the end of the day, I have a job to do. So as much as I do not want to propose a jail sanction, I will, if necessary." Willie?
And when the trial resumed, prosecutors delved into the documents that are at the heart of this case. That came in testimony from former Trump Organization controller Jeffrey McConney and current employee Deborah Tarasoff, an accounts payable supervisor and a 24-year veteran of the company. They both explained the mechanics of reimbursing former Trump attorney and fixer Michael Cohen for the $130,000 paid to adult film actress Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet about an alleged affair with Donald Trump. Trump has denied any sexual encounter with Daniels. They also described how several of the large sums that went to Cohen for the alleged purposes of hush money payments came directly from Donald Trump's bank account. And for the first time during the trial, a check from the alleged scheme was shown in court. Let's bring in former litigator, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Lisa, good morning. You had a front row seat yesterday inside the courtroom, so perhaps not as splashy as David Pecker when you hear about someone from accounts payable, but really important to this case.
Totally important, and as understated what you just said was maybe as Juan Merchan telling Donald Trump that it appears that the $1,000 fines are not working as a deterrent.
Yeah.
Yesterday was an incredibly important day in court and not at all a sensational one, because document by document, McConney and Tarasoff went through the 34 business records that are alleged here to have been falsified. And the prosecutors made them read from those documents so that the jury can understand what specifically about each and every one of these documents is allegedly false. So, for example, Michael Cohen's 12 invoices all say, pursuant to our retainer agreement, here is my bill for services rendered. What's false about that? There was no retainer agreement. There were no services rendered. And similarly, they had to go through the checks and the check stubs, each one of which says that it's pursuant to a retainer. And then they had to go through the general business ledger entries that similarly say that this is pursuant to a retainer and for legal services. That is not at all exciting for the jury, and you could see that there were times that their attention waned. But it is the heart and the crux of the charged crime here, and perhaps the most important day legally in this trial, if not at least the most exciting one.
And the fact that we learned they came directly from Donald Trump's personal bank accounts and not from the Trump Organization's bank account. And also, when Tarasoff was asked, did this go through the legal department at the Trump Organization? Because they claim, talking about legal retainers, she said no. And she admitted that that was unusual. So how damning was the testimony to Donald Trump yesterday?
I think the testimony was damning to Donald Trump in a number of ways, and not even ways that I think the jury fully appreciates yet, but hopefully on closing argument will. One of the things that Jeff McConney said, for example, that I thought was hugely damaging was he talked about an episode early on in his employment where Trump called him in because he was delivering something to Donald Trump in terms of his cash balances from a week-to-week basis. That was one of McConney's responsibilities. And Trump is on the phone and he said, hold on, Jeff, you're fired. And he's waiting for McConney. And when he gets off the phone, he goes, no, you're not fired, but my cash balance went down. Why was that? And McConney explains, well, I had bills to pay. And Trump instructs him, basically, from this point forward, you don't just pay the bills as they're tendered to you, you negotiate. And McConney said that was a teaching moment for him. Remember, if a person is telling you, as the person responsible for paying out all of his bills, negotiate everything, it's kind of at odds with that to then have these Invoices come in for $35,000 every month without any explanation. 2 lines saying, pursuant to our retainer agreement, here's my bill for services, and expect to be paid $35,000 with no questions asked. That's not who Donald Trump was, and the prosecutors want the jury to understand.
And these are not disgruntled employees. In fact, Tarasov is still an employee of the Trump Organization, but just telling the truth on the stand yesterday. So let's talk about Judge Merchan, his warning again yesterday, saying to Donald Trump in that order, I don't want to put you in jail, but if you keep violating the gag order, clearly $1,000 per violation is not making a dent here. I'm going to have to do it. Do you think we're going to reach that point?
I'm hopeful that we won't reach that point. And Juan Merchan, I compared him on another show a couple weeks ago to the disappointed parental or grandfatherly figure that we all have that gets quieter the angrier he gets. His tone yesterday was definitely one more of sorrow than of anger. He was very understated. Hopefully he is impressing upon the former president, this is, as he said, this is the last thing I want to do. And yet, if I have no choice, I will do it, because the statute provides him only with 2 options, either $1,000 per violation or incarceration up to 30 days. And he said, point blank, this isn't really making a dent to charge you $1,000 per. The one bright side for Donald Trump, if you can call it that, is the district attorney had alleged 4 violations. Only one of them, Juan Merchan found yesterday, was violative of the gag order. 2 of the alleged violations are about Michael Cohen. The Trump team made some inroads with Merchan by showing him that Trump's statements about Cohen were close in time, if not on the same day, to statements Cohen made about Trump on X that were highly inflammatory. And they said Trump was just defending himself against a politicized attack. Merchan didn't agree with them per se, but he said it was close enough that he couldn't find beyond reasonable doubt that Trump should be held in criminal contempt. So look for Trump to try and test those lines a little bit more, particularly if Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels continues to talk. On the other hand, if he goes after jurors again, or he makes a statement about a different witness, do I think Juan Merchan is a man of his word? I do, Willie, and we'll see.